Hello. So I hope you guys brought your seatbelts because you're gonna have to buckle up for this story. And this story that I would like to tell is one of a psychedelic nature. A story where one man went to go exploring for the answers of the mysteries within the universe. One day this man decided to buy LSD, and one day after work he went to go acquire said LSD. He got it from another man who he never met, and they exchanged money for LSD. And then he went back home and proceeded to take 10 tabs of LSD in a small parking lot. These effects that this man felt were more profound and more intense than any other psychedelic trip he's had. And he's had many, hundreds. Right away, he can tell that the effects were coming on faster and stronger. 10 minutes in, he already knew he was in for a wild ride. He was on a patio that was connected to a McAllister's deli, which was connected to the parking lot complex with a grocery store, a haircut place, a Starbucks, and other various stores such as like a pizza parlor and a CVS. And as he was on this patio, the water, or the air, started turning into water. Tentacles started coming out of his stomach. And to his amusement, he was very unfazed, but fascinated by the hallucinations that he was experiencing. Shortly after, he was in an Auschwitz chamber with spikes coming out of him and gas, poisonous gas, filling up the room. Still, he was amused and not fazed by these hallucinations, almost as if he was watching a movie. After this hallucination, he found himself next to his car mysteriously. He did not remember how he got there. All he knew is that he was standing by his car now. At this point, the lines between dream and reality started to become non-existent. For the most part, he was phased into his own version of reality, a complete separate one that was somewhere else besides where he normally was in normal reality. He experienced all sorts of different visions. Visions of when he was a kid, of memories that he once forgot, of his family loving him. He experienced lots of things that he forgot. And he experienced very cruel and unusual visions as well, such as him going to work. And everybody that he knew was there, all his coworkers and his boss. And there was a giant cake at the counter, and it was his birthday. And everybody was celebrating and happy to see him. But his boss was carrying this little remote control with a red button on it. And every time he went to go cut his cake, he got electrocuted from his boss. And his boss kept on telling him that he was doing it wrong. He experienced this vision of being electrocuted hundreds of times. He then found himself becoming aware of his normal reality. After hundreds of times of experiencing this electrocution, he started fighting the vision. So in normal reality, he was thrashing around, throwing himself on the ground, hurting himself in hopes that he would stop the vision. But sooner or later, he would fully go back to the vision, and he would lose all consciousness of where he was in normal reality. He then finally, after many, many times of repeating the same vision, found an end to it. But he was still very much so in the LSD mind state. He thought he was in hell. He thought he would never go back to normal. He thought he would be trapped in this way of being forever. And so he believed that he had to move in certain ways and say certain things at certain movements with his body, almost like casting a spell. He felt like he had to do this, and if he didn't do it right, he'd have to do it over again until he finally got it right. And so out of a frantic madness, he repeated the movements over and over and over and over and over and over for what seemed like an eternity. He began ripping the reality in front of him into rifts of other parallel dimensions. He began to see alternate realities by cutting them open with his finger and shooting ribbons of energy through the fabric of the universe. He began to fly while simultaneously also being aware of his reality where he's standing. He began to see the realities bleed over into each other, the realities fighting, or him fighting for what reality he wanted. He was overcoming the persistent illusion of the reality his mind had made. He was leaving normal reality, fighting for it, to be able to fly. But the normal reality was always too strong to fully convert over to a reality where he could fly. This multidimensional delusion of fictional belief still carried over into a sense of where he felt like he could punch through buildings. So he would run into buildings and hold out his fist and try to bash through the building. And on one hand, he was seeing it happen. But on another parallel dimension, he was seeing it not happen. He was existing in multiple places at once. So even though in the normal reality this was a fictional belief, in another one it wasn't. He went out into the parking lot and felt all of his demons and all of his insecurities and his fears show their face. He faced them all, pounding on his chest like a wild gorilla, full of primal energy, ready to conquer his old self. And in this stupor of psychedelic trance, of fading into different realities and fading out of them, he found himself picking himself up from the ground in the normal reality. And he saw a semicircle of cops and nurses and people standing around him, ambulance cars and cop cars with their sirens on. Just the light, but not the sound. Being completely unaware of the weight of the situation, a cop says, "Are you okay?" And in this psychedelic stupor, he remains saying nothing and walking towards the cop. The cop then tackles the man, restrains him down, but this man is still halfway in the psychedelic realm, halfway in other dimensions. In his mind, he's wrestling his childhood friend. In the real world, or the normal world, he's being restrained by a cop. So he starts lifting himself up off the ground to try to wrestle. And another cop comes in and helps restrain him. They put him in handcuffs. He snaps back into normal reality, realizes what's happening, still almost in disbelief. He gets put onto a stretcher. They put him in the ambulance. And they start driving to the hospital. During this drive, this man is still in the deep end of the psychedelic state. He sees one of the nurses talking to him in the ambulance, but the nurse appears to be his uncle. They keep on asking him, "What did you take? What did you take?" But all he saw was his uncle, asking him if he was okay. He did not respond and tell them what he took, because he was too far gone. For he was experiencing a different reality again. Everything went black for him, complete blackness. And in the depths of the silence, a drop fell from nowhere and hit the emptiness, and the emptiness rippled like a stone hitting a pond. And all he heard was 0. Everything comes from the same source. He then came to. He realized he was in the hospital or in the ambulance. And he was in complete calm and ease. And he saw everything is divine, everything is beautiful. He saw light emanating from everything. He then arrives in the hospital and he sees his elementary school friends looking down at him from another dimension or from a spiritual place. And they're all saying, "Holy crap, I can't believe this is happening to him. This is crazy." They were all in shock and just found it almost hysterically crazy that they had a laugh at the situation because it was just so far out. That the person that they knew is now going through this. He felt complete at ease. He started having more visions of when he was a kid, of feeling love, the deepest love he's ever known, from family members. And then he goes black. And he wakes up in the hospital with tubes attached to his arms, with a little heart monitor connected to him. He's on a bed. There's nobody in there. He rips all the tubes and things off of him. He gets up, he gets ready to leave, and then the nurse comes by, asks him some questions. She says that you're not supposed to leave, but he says he's leaving anyways. And she says, "Well, I need you to sign this paper for the bill." And she asks him what he took. He said LSD. And she said, "I thought you took PCP." Because she said she's never seen anybody act like that off of LSD. But we must remember he took a lot, 10 tabs at once. And so he was very deep into that world. And I digress. She lets him go. She said they called an Uber for him, but he didn't care. He wanted to get out of the hospital right away. So he ran 6 miles back to his car and on concrete with just his feet, no shoes. He gets back to his car. He finds he has a ticket for possession of marijuana. And he has to break into his car because his keys are in his car and the door is locked. And he ends up staying the night with a friend. And his life became really difficult after that. But it was all good for him in the long run. After he faced all his difficulties and changed his life around, he looks back at that moment and he's really happy that it happened. So that's my story for the day. That's a trippy tale. And yeah. Peace, guys.